doing very well.
Listen, this is a treat for me on a number of levels. When my wife and I moved up to Williamstown, a number of years ago, I should mention my wife was Danny Meyer's assistant for a number of years, and we were invited to this party at Mezze down on Route 43. It was a restaurant, we heard, and my wife was, oh, come on, I'm not going to know anybody there. So I said, come on, sweetie, geez, it's our new community. None of us know anybody here. Let's go. We went to this place, and it was a party to welcome Mezze's new chef, James Tracy, who was up here, whose wife came from this area. And upon entering the room, Bridget goes, James! And James goes, Bridget! And James, turns out, worked with Tom Colicchio at the Gramercy Tavern. And, of course, the rest is history in that book. James is now working with Tom Colicchio down at Colicchio and Sons. So clearly Mezze is of the stuff of legends, to say the least. And over these last several years, we've seen as Nancy Thomas has not only opened other restaurants, but has been pioneering the use of local produce and various foodstuffs from the area. And this is not an easy thing to do. And this is also right up Danny's alley, as you heard from the movie. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Danny, that you already met at the film, and of course Nancy Thomas. If you haven't met her before, she's very accessible. You can harass her, but also at Allium and Great Barrington, and also up here at Williamstown. Nancy and Danny.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Hi, everyone. Hi. Thank you so much for coming. I just got a call from our local Boys in Blue. We have a couple of cars out on Route 7 that do need to be moved.
Oh, one of them's mine.
I will move it for you happily. But they did just get called over to us. So if you could kindly, I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
In New York, they wouldn't have asked.
Also, a BMW from New Jersey has its lights on. Do you know what's happening with lights?
I understand a BMW from New Jersey has its lights on.
It's a party now.
That was New Jersey.
Anyway, I want to thank all of you all for attending the event this evening, and it's a great honor for me to be standing here with Danny Meyer. Many of you who I know I'm amongst friends here know that, I'm a little embarrassed to say, but he's my restaurateur hero. So
it works for me, thank you.
Cheers.
And I want to just take the opportunity to say that my family and I had the most incredible evening at Allium. Thanks to you, and we were lucky enough that you were there that night. But what a great restaurant.
I was lucky.
What a great restaurant.
So I prepared a little information because I knew I'd be nervous standing here talking to Danny tonight. I just wanted to, if you guys don't know as much about his career from watching Restaurateur and 11 Madison Park in Tabla, his career started in the 80s with Union Square Cafe, Gramercy Tavern. There's gone on to Blue Smoke, 11 Madison Park. He opened the Shake Shacks, the Modern, the other cafes at the MoMA, Untitled, Tabla, Myelino, and lately Hospitality Quotient. And I may have missed some there. He has several other concession stands right now at the Met City Field, the Saratoga Racetrack, and a catering company. It's formidable, to say the least. He's also written a bestseller book called Setting the Table, which I require all the management team at Mezze to read, and Allium and Mezze Catering. And he was co-authored the Union Square Cafe Cookbook and Mix, Stir, and Shake. So, we're standing amongst a real celebrity in my field, and I'm honored. So I have many questions I wanted to ask, but I had to narrow it down to just a few. So I'll start with the easy ones. How many people do you currently employ?
2,421.
Yeah! So many people ask me, Nancy, how do you divide your time up? You drive in Williamstown, you're in Great Barrington, and I think about your career and I say, you're overseeing an empire here. So what's a typical day in a Danny Meyer day of running that many restaurants?
There is no typical day. I think one of the things that is important for me to share that despite all those different businesses, and there are a lot of different businesses, we still do not have, as of this minute, a fine dining restaurant that is beyond Manhattan. And as a matter of fact, of our...
You're welcome.
Of the 8 places that have waiter-waitress service, 6 of them are within a 5-minute walk of my apartment and my office. And what that means, in fact, one of them is a 30-second walk from my front door. What that means is that when it comes to the one-of-a-kind restaurants, which I love, Union Square Cafe, Gramercy Tavern, Maialino, etc., the ability to really handcraft that experience and be there for our staff, for our guests, for the community is large. With a place like Shake Shack, of which there are now 13 in the world, two of which are in the Middle East, go figure. Nice Jewish boy from St. Louis and doing business in Kuwait and Dubai. We did draw a line in the sand at Saudi Arabia. Just want to know that. No, actually, pun intended, but it's true. Yes, very funny. But the reason that we think we can do those beyond New York, and we have one in Washington, D.C., one in Miami Beach, one in Connecticut, and soon to be one in Philadelphia, and one in this other country called Brooklyn is on its way as well. But that Shake Shack does not depend upon reservations and florists and chefs and pastry chefs and dining room managers and knowing exactly whose favorite table is what. So it's really a systems-driven business. However, it is completely based on the same hospitality principles that you have right here. And that's the fun of it, is to try to bring a fine dining sensibility about ingredients and sourcing and food and management to what is... It's not fast food. Anyone who's been there knows it's not fast.
Right.
But it's not a fine dining experience either.
Okay, so it's well written that you really love providing pleasure for others. How did you create a culture for over 2,400 people to sign up to feel the same way that you do?
Well, you don't teach people to feel the same way. You try to articulate what that means and then find people for whom those words resonate. I don't think we've ever taught anyone anything. We haven't. Basically what we've done is to name something that people have been feeling anyway. And that maybe in their last job, nobody gave them license to be themselves. And one of the things we've learned about hospitality, interestingly, we had to go to Japan to figure this out. We have a licensed restaurant in Tokyo called Union Square Tokyo. We don't own it. But we got hired by a terrific company in Japan. And what they told us was, they said, we do an incredible job here in Japan of regimentation. We can mimic almost anything you do. What you do that we don't know how to do is hospitality. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, watch. And the guy took me to one of the malls in Japan, a lot of malls and big tall buildings. And he said, all I have to do is look at that woman, and she will bow, whether or not I want her to bow. She just knows that's exactly what you're supposed to do when someone looks at you. And she says, but hospitality is a lot like jazz. And we love American jazz. It's improvisation. Every interaction is different. Okay, so and then we got into a deep philosophical conversation about jazz. In a jazz band, everyone agrees on the song. But everybody gets to step up and do their solo. And he said that's a very American thing, and we want to learn that. And we want you to teach it to us. And I love that.
Yeah. So in the book, you coined a phrase, hospitalitarians, which I guess is a continuation of your last bit about Japan. Can you tell us more? Because I use that phrase often when I'm trying to do the training of the staff in the restaurants. what is a hospitalitarian?
Well, hospitalitarian is a word that I wish I hadn't coined. So I actually came up with a better way to describe it. Maybe you'll disagree, but we call it having a high HQ. And the reason that I like using that a little bit better is that very, very much like an IQ, you don't know how you got your IQ. I don't know how. I don't even know what mine is. But what I do know is you can't learn to make it different than what it is already. It kind of comes with you, and all an IQ is, it's a numerical way to describe the degree to which you are able to learn information. It doesn't say how much information you have.
Right.
And an HQ like that is something that comes with you wherever you go. And the way we describe it is it's the degree to which somebody actually derives pleasure from the act of making somebody else feel good. Okay, it's not a good thing if you have one. It's not a bad thing if you don't. But if you're in our business, in fact, I would argue if you're in all of our businesses, whatever they are, it's not a bad thing to have someone. Doesn't say anything about how good you are at what you do. It says a lot about how good you are at how you make other people feel. And I think that we have consistently developed ways to identify. We can't teach people to have a high HQ, but we know how to identify people who have it. And we know what these 6 key emotional skills are that go into having a high HQ, and we know how to name them and really get there when it comes to interviewing people.
Easy question. What's the best advice you would give to a first-time server? Some of the staff in the room might want to know that.
Tell your boss she's the greatest thing since
It doesn't guarantee you get shifts.
Look, I think that I'll give you a quick story. A week ago, just by coincidence, Roger and I don't do this film and Q&A thing all that often, but we happened to do it last week at the CIA. And the very first thing that we did was that we were part of a group of 12, all these highfalutin professors and the 2 of us, and this poor person had to serve us lunch. And the professors were all saying, did she do a good job at this? Did she do a good job? The fact is that until we basically believe this. You hire for the HQ, because that's there. That's part of the stuffing. And then you train like crazy for the technical stuff. But until they get the technical stuff, you're not going to see the high HQ. It's like when we all learned to drive stick shift for the first time. It was all technical, and we weren't spending a whole lot, even though we may be great at music, we weren't spending a lot of time thinking about the music on the radio. Or we weren't thinking about the scenery outside, or we weren't telling jokes to our friends. We couldn't be us until we first learned to do it. And once you learn to do it, and it becomes second nature, whatever the it is. So it just takes patience and time, but always hire for the HQ, because that's not going to change.
Did you guys get all that? So, your business model, the time I've spent dining at your restaurants and reading your books and watching everything on YouTube. Your business model
I'll watch everything on YouTube.
Yeah, some of us, I agree. Your business model begins with your restaurants being in proximity to the city parks and access to the Union Square Green Market. And it gives your chefs and other co-workers access to great farm product and the urban landscape. Here in the Berkshires, I advocate for food culture based on our landscape, based on 19th century small farms, our pastures, heritage animals, dairy farms, and orchards. My question to you is, do you think Americans are ready in our rural settings for food culture that's based on terroir? I got a chance to go on a hike with Ruth Reichel and had to ask her, are Americans ready for food culture? There are a few of us in this room who are dedicated to telling the story of the Berkshires and what one might expect in our community living here as an asset and also visiting here. Do you find that how we romanticize France and Italy, that when you visit a place you kind of have a sense of what you might eat and how that experience would be. Do you think that Americans are ready to have that here in this country?
She's good.
No, I think you just answered the question that you asked so eloquently. The answer is absolutely.
Yay!
And I think that if there's an advantage that the old world, they refer to wine as old world wines and new world wines.
Right.
So if you think about France and Italy and Spain, Germany, the advantage that they have is that they've been not only doing this for years and years and years and years, but in many cases, the food and the wine grew up together. So you've heard the expression many times, if it grows together, it goes together. So if you go to Tuscany, the food you eat just so happens, the sheep's milk cheese happens to go beautifully with the Sangiovese. Guess why? The animals are eating stuff that grew the exact same place that the wine grew, and the culinary traditions grew up way before. It wasn't about a trend that I read about in Food and Wine magazine. It's because that's what grew there the best. So why will that work here? We are developing terroir, and I think our food is actually leading the way. Some of the areas in this country don't lend themselves to grape growing, like right here. But it does lend itself to extraordinary dairy and animal production, and there's no question that because of people like you and thankfully a handful of other just resolute restaurateurs and chefs, you can now come to a part of the country and it tastes like where you are, and that makes you feel alive. So yes.
Go Berkshires. So, the economy's tough right now. And we've been sitting down in our management team having discussions about how we invite you into our restaurants and how you depart with your hard-earned dollars and how we quantify our value and your departure of those dollars. How is your group strategizing in this economy for success?
Well, the dollars and cents part, the fact is this awful economy has now been going on for so long that you get a lot better at the business end because you have to. You just have to be better at how you manage your expenses. But the other thing that I think we have an advantage at in this business is that in a down economy, obviously the prevailing emotion is fear. And so the only antidote that I know of to fear is hope. And hope is the root of the word hospitality. And it's what we do. And so when you come to one of our places, you are parting with hard-earned dollars, but you're coming here to get a hug. And that's what we do. And so I think that if you think about, you go to the dry cleaner, I don't really get a hug because you got the stain out of my shirt. But I can do that for you, and you can do it for people when they go out to eat. And so I think we have what people are looking for.
Good answer. Easy question. This is from the cooks. What's your favorite junk food?
Well, that's easy. Sausage and mushroom pizza.
Okay, I have a little story to share with you. Everybody that I work with knows what Danny Meyer means in my world to me. And a few years ago, I got a gift certificate from the staff for Christmas that was for 11 Madison Park. And Stephen Hannick so kindly helped me get in and I think made a phone call to you and tried to help me set up a moment to potentially meet him. And I was really nervous, as I am now. And so...
Get the hug going.
Oh. Thank you. Hugs are good. So it took us, like, Bo and I 2 years. I don't know if Bo Peabody, my business partner there, we're really excited. There he is back there. Go, Bo. And so it took us about 2 years to finally get it together, make the time, get to New York together, and go to 11 Madison for lunch. And so we made the reservation, and I believe the guest experience starts on the phone. And they were lovely, and they took care of us. The day came. I showed up before Bo did. They have this warmth and graciousness, if you've not experienced it, starts right at the door. And I got there first, and they led me to my table, and then Bo arrived a little bit after, and we were dining at 11 Madison Park. And the menu, if you've not been there recently, it just has words like halibut or, whatever kind of lamb, and there's no description, and you're in their hands. But because they've earned your trust, we had a prefix tasting, and we kind of chose our different things because we were both interested in having multiple ideas to experience. And so we sat there, and we weren't sure if Danny was going to be able to come by or not, and there's a lot of anticipation, and we had great wine, we had great food, and then we were towards the end of our meal, and the maitre d' came over and said, we'd like to invite you into the back of the house, and to take a look around and give you a tour. And they said, so let us know when you're ready. And I said, Bo, I'm not ready. So he said, oh, okay, I'll get another Makers. So we sat there for a minute, and then I was like, okay, I'm ready now. So they came back over, and we went back into the first room, and this is recently after their renovation, which took place just over a year ago. And we went into where the waiter's galley is, which is where they, assemble their mise en place.
The waiter's galley used to be our most profitable dining room.
It's a beautiful waiter's galley.
Yes.
And there, the person giving us the tour was telling us a story about these words. There was like a 4-foot by 8-foot, I don't know if it's a poster or something on the wall that had all these words on it. And it started to explain to us the story of when they chose, the chef and I guess the management team got together and chose to renovate and add something more to the 11 Madison Park experience. And all these words were about Miles Davis. And we've now heard him talk about jazz. And so we stared at the words for a moment, and then we got invited into the kitchen. And my heart's pounding, So we go into the kitchen, and there's this lovely little table that you can stand at. It's about just 18 inches wide, and it gives you a bird's eye view of the entire kitchen. And behind us was a giant picture of Miles Davis playing his trumpet. And I think it was given to you by Sony or something. And a nice story came, and then the person giving us the tour left us, and a nice young man rolled a guerdon over and said, I'm going to make you something. And we were like, wow, okay, great. So he made us this terrific dessert. It was based on a Hemingway cocktail, and it had some fun touches to it, and they were foaming and freezing, and he was really friendly the whole time, so it wasn't uncomfortable. And we were at the end of lunch, so we were in between like a lunch and a dinner shift change, and I'm there counting how many employees are back. I'm like, 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, oh my God, there's at least 40 people in the kitchen right now. And so, my brain is working overtime, and I'm trying to pay attention, and Bo and I are standing there, and this really terrific young man makes us this great dessert, and then he rolls his cart away, and we're just standing there. And I just can't even speak. And Bo's probably, trying to, laugh, and we've been drinking wine, and we're in the kitchen, and this wonderful thing is happening. And so we have our desserts, and then we finished, and they were, of course, paying close attention, and they walked us back out to our seats, and we sat down, and we were going to finish our experience, and then someone walked over and handed me a note card in an envelope, and it was a note from Danny, and it said, I'm so happy you're here, and I'm sorry I couldn't meet you, but the whole experience, every detail was just so hospitable and warm and gracious and lovely. And we finished our desserts and gave them our gift certificate, and we parted ways, and I think Bo went back to work. And I was really grateful at that time that park that he helped raise the $10 million for existed. Because I went to the bench and I sat there, and I was like, wow. I just needed like another 10 minutes to digest what I had just experienced. Because this whole thing was experiential. It wasn't, just walking in and getting served food, but every level and attention to detail was there. So it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I'm a huge fan, obviously.
Did you notice the 3 Stephen Hannock paintings
Of
smiling,
course!
smiling upon you?
And I read in the New York Times that they go with the sale of the restaurant. So I'm thrilled that they remain intact. And you know, I'm very fond and I'm very grateful for that experience. But my question to you was, as I learned about Miles Davis and how you and the team got together to take one step further in improving 11 Madison Park, I was really taken that Miles Davis was the inspiration and that there was so much time taken
And the reason for that,
to find his soul. And I'd like to know
the
a
reason
little
for
bit more
that
about
was that the very first review we got, remember we had gotten 2 consecutive 2-star reviews from the New York Times. Then Daniel comes to the restaurant from San Francisco, and the first newspaper, the New York Times always waits a while to weigh in because they're the paper of record. They let everybody else go first. And the very first review that we got from a newspaper after Daniel got there was from the New York Observer, Moira Hodgson, and she gave the restaurant, I think it was either 2.5 or it was 3.1. I don't know what it was. It wasn't a round number, but it was a very complimentary review. It was the kind of review that you know, everybody said, all right, so we're on the right track, but it wasn't where we wanted to be. But in her review, she said, what this restaurant is definitely on the right track. It just needs a little more Miles Davis. And so we sat down after the review and we said, what could that mean? What do you think she means? And I was a jazz DJ at Trinity College. I know Miles Davis, but I didn't know what she meant. So I said to Will, the general manager, I said, I want you to go to the internet and I want you to write down a list of 30 adjectives that you consistently see used to describe Miles Davis. And he did. And from that list of 30, I said, now cull it down to 12. And that's what he did. And those 12 words became the guidepost for where to take 11 Madison Park. And when 11 Madison Park got its 4 stars in the New York Times, the first call was to Will's dad. The second call was to Moira Hodgson to say thank you. And she had not known about this. And we invited her back to the restaurant and said, we did it.
Well, it was really impressive to see how many places one finds inspiration. So it was a great, great tour. So one more question. What you've moved on to now, because we talk about hospitality, is hospitality quotient. And it seems to be what's next, what the team's capabilities are. Hospitality quotient, from what I understand, when I ask more about, is how to teach other businesses to be hospitable and to how they, I guess, cultivate good employee culture. And I just wanted to learn about how that's your next move. It feels like your next move in business. You've moved from you're not just a restaurateur, as it said, but you're a businessman now, and how hospitality quotient fits into it.
Well, we have a company called Hospitality Quotient, and we work, interestingly, mostly not with restaurants.
Right.
But most of the companies that hire us, in fact, they come take a class for a day or 2 or 3. And they are companies that are already the best in the world at what they do. It could be a clothing company, you know. It could be a sporting goods company. It could be a Broadway theater company. It could be a pet store company. It could be a dental company. Hospitals like you wouldn't believe. Interesting that hospitals, the word hospital is in the word hospitality. They just don't have any. When was the last time you were excited about the experience of going to a hospital?
Yeah.
Never. But anyway, we're not teaching them to be hospitable. We are helping them to unleash that which they have anyway. Unfortunately, I'll take hospitals as an example. The entire culture of hospitals is measuring what they do instead of measuring how they make people feel. And I know that sounds laughable, because the reason you should go to a hospital is to feel better. And the fact is that the reason you buy a house is theoretically to feel better. And so real estate companies that are only measuring that which they thought was measurable are now understanding that stockbrokers, hedge funds. You wouldn't believe it. That the way they make people feel is really the most distinguishing thing. So we're having fun with this, and we're realizing that sharing what we've learned has not put us out of business. It's like writing a cookbook. It doesn't put you out of business because someone has your recipes. In fact, it's actually helping our restaurants because the people who take the classes spend time with us in our restaurants as well to see how we roadmap this stuff.
Danny, Nancy, I want to thank you for this unbelievable seminar on food in the movies. Thank